Okay. Last time, where did we get to? Was it, were we still in the 5th century or we got to the 6th century? 512?
You also had something to share about how, the approach of the Chalcedonians to Church of the East, how they kind of like approach that like dialogue
Ah,
or apologetics.
thank you. I would have totally forgotten. So, when Chalcedonians, especially Eastern Orthodox, when they're talking to the Assyrian Church of the East, I wanted to say this last time and I forgot, they only use our saints, our shared saints from before the schism, from before the break. So they don't use the post-schism saints because that doesn't refute the Christology, it's the same. This is why the Chalcedonians tried to strawman the Church of the East, especially the Eastern Chalcedonians, the Eastern Orthodox. They tried to strawman the Assyrian Church of the East and to paint them in this picture that makes them look worse than they are. They're not saying something that, on the contrary, if anything, they're more accurate about what they're saying than the Eastern Orthodox are. That's why they have to keep using our saints to talk to them. And I want to recap a little bit on the 5th century real quick before we get into, because it's 2 weeks at a time, so we can remember. So Chalcedon was in 451. The 2 years before that was Ephesus 2. Dioscoros didn't read the tome of Leo at Ephesus 2. Why did he not read it? Because the empire, the government officials at Ephesus 2 stopped him from reading the tome. Dioscoros asked for the tome to be read. The government officials interrupted his request multiple times and didn't allow it to be read. Why? Because the government wanted to exonerate Eutyches, and they wanted this to be the trial, not Leo's tome to be the judgment on Eutyches. Okay? The tome wasn't read, but it also wasn't condemned. It was condemned by Dioscoros in 454. So why is he condemning it after? Because now it's being understood in the context of Chalcedon from 451. Now it has a context with it. It's not just like isolated like 449. 449, it could have been read. But in 454, now it has the Chalcedon like politics with it too. In 497, did I talk about the letter from Alexandria to Rome? I did?
But you can go over it.
In 497, Alexandria wrote a letter to Rome, with the spirit of reconciliation. Okay, they wanted to reconcile, and they said, it's possible that the tome was translated into Greek wrong. Let's talk about it. And we're going to keep a copy of this letter so that when Christ comes back, we can show him we wanted the reconciliation of the churches. Okay? So and I talked about the Church of the East and what happened, the break, right? From 484, what happened with Marbawe. Yeah. Okay. So from 484 to 518, officially in 484, but really before that, like from 475, early 470s, the East is united for the most part, non-Chalcedonian, okay? There's something called the Henoticon that unites the churches in the East, and then they continue united, all the sees, Constantinople included, until 518. In 518, there's a new emperor. His name is Justin. And Justin wants to reconcile Rome. So Rome tells Justin, he writes a formula. This is Pope Hormisdas of Rome. He writes a formula and he says, impose this, even if by soldiers, on all the churches in the East. If anyone disagrees, kill him or put him into exile. And the formula says, if any of the people that they venerate as saints in the East died outside of communion with Rome, then they need to remove him from the list of the saints, the diptychs. So the emperor, Justin, imposed this, and Saint Severus of Antioch, right there, he was sent into exile. So Severus became Patriarch of Antioch in 512, okay? 512 AD, still in the United Church, like as far as the East is concerned. As far as the East is concerned, the lines are still one line of patriarchate. So we had Peter the Fuller in 468. He's patriarch for 20 years, till 488. And this is in the time of the Union, right? And then between him and Severus, there's like a few guys. And then Severus becomes patriarch in 512. So in 518, Severus didn't sign this formula. So he was sent into exile. Philoxenos was sent into exile. Philoxenos actually in exile, they poisoned him and they killed him when he was in jail. Severus was in the desert in Egypt, and he's writing all of these arguments against them, these apologies. He's writing off of memory. He doesn't have his library or his books, and he's quoting everything, scriptures, fathers, perfectly quoting them, word for word quoting them. And he doesn't have any books with him in the desert. Okay? So, let's see here. Okay. In 518, so the Romans they had put in Paul the Jew, the Pope put in Paul the Jew to be the new line patriarch of Antioch, and this was under the Pope of Rome's power. So it wasn't like an independent patriarchate like Antioch had historically always been, functioning on its own. Now it's subservient to the Pope of Rome. Whoever the Pope of Rome approves, he becomes the patriarch there. Paul the Jew was allowing for the veneration of Nestorius and others, okay? So they don't, to be fair to them, they don't venerate Paul the Jew. They actually look at him, looking back at him, they look at him like a heretic now. But so, you created a new line. Why would you do that? And so there's multiple patriarchs after them. This is in a time, again, of persecution, okay? Because with this formula coming in, exiling of the bishops, the lay people are now being forced to go to these churches. One of the cases, they hold a monk, Syriac Orthodox monk, they hold him down and they force him to receive communion he didn't want to. They forced him to. He spit it out of his mouth and they burned him. They burned him at the stake. So then when we're going around willy-nilly, communing everywhere, look at what was happening at that time and then look what we're acting like. Yeah? Okay. So they had a patriarch on their side in this rival line. His name was Ephraim of Amid. Amid today is Diyarbakir. Okay? A lot of the patriarchs on their side in the first era were our ethnicity, were Suryoye. Okay? They were our ethnicity, ironically, and then the patriarchs on our side at this time were Greek, like Severus or Peter. After Severus, you have our ethnicity as the line, and then they eventually get the exclusive Greek because of the geography of how it worked. But initially, it wasn't like that. So the Syriac side for them, the ethnic Syriac people on their side, why were they on their side? Because they were from Theodore's school or students of Theodore's students, like this. So Church of the East, border area. So Ephraim of Amid, he was the strongest of the persecutors. Ephraim of Amid, and also there was one, I think his name was Abraham. They were very, very strong in their persecution against us. They tried to make us completely extinct. Justin's nephew, Justinian, becomes emperor after Justin. He's married to Theodora. Theodora is a saint for us. She's also one of our people, okay? And she actually protected us from extermination completely because Justinian also was persecuting us.
Sayyidina Zakka Awasi said she comes second in glory to Mary only, like right after Mary.
Big deal.
She comes.
Yeah, big deal. Theodora is a big deal. So, um, when Ephraim of Ahmed, he visited the Ghassasina one day. Okay? Who are the Ghassasina? The Ghassanids. Does anyone know them? Arab. Yeah, they were Arabs. So they came originally from Yemen, from Ma'rib in Yemen, and there was a dam there, Sed, and it collapsed. So then they left Yemen and then they went up into what is Bilad al-Sham. Their capital was it's called Horan, like South Syria, North Jordan, and their kingdom was what is today Jordan, North Hijaz, and like somewhere in desert Syria, like this kind of area, Sinai, parts of it. They were staunchly Syriac Orthodox, staunchly. They would fight for it, like have battles with armies. They would fight for it. So, and they hid Saint Jacob Beredeus. They hid him among them multiple times. They would dress him up like a Bedouin, Arabi, and they'd hide him. So one day, Ephraim of Ahmed goes to them because they're powerful. He wants to convert the tribe. If you convert the sheikh, you convert the whole tribe. That's how it was before. So he wanted to convert them. So he goes to them, and you know, al-adat al-Arabiya, like they have to make manasif and all this stuff. So they brought him. It was like mansaf, but with camel meat, which he can't eat. Okay, Ephraim of Ahmed can't eat that. He considers it forbidden meat to him. He says, "Why would you bring this if you know I can't eat it?" He tells I think it was Al-Harith. By the way, the kings of the Ghassasina are historically venerated in our church as saints. So Al-Harith told him, just like how you want us to accept something, yani Chalcedon, when you have a little mouse in it called the Tome of Leo. So why would you expect us to eat your food just in the same way we're expecting you to eat this? Yeah, if you read exactly what he said, it's a lot more articulate, but this is what and so he got offended and he got up and left. The Roman Empire later, for the Ghassasina story, because we won't get into it, but later on, it exiles all their kings to Sicily, and then it forces them to accept Chalcedon. So this is why in Horan and Jordan, the native Christians there today are Rum, because they were forced to become Rum, but they're not. They should be Syrian Orthodox. And when the Futuhat happened, so what the Ghassasina were, they were a buffer state between the Roman Empire and the Arabian Peninsula. So when the Futuhat happened, the Islamic conquests, you lose this buffer state now because of what you did to the Ghassasina. So they tried fighting, but they were so weakened by that point that it was not helpful. There was a battle called the Battle of Yarmouk, Ma'arakat al-Yarmouk. There's a river there called the Yarmouk River in Horan, where the capital of the Ghassasina was. And the Muslims won the battle, and they were able to take all of Bilad al-Sham, all of Syria, because of this. And so Rome lost Syria here, in these actions, the Roman Empire. Um, See how things affect things. It's like dominoes, you know. The Ghasasina continue later on in history under the caliphates, even fighting in battles, in the caliphate battles against each other, like Ma'arakat Siffin and all of these things between Muawiyah and I think it was, I can't remember, Hussein or Ali, I don't remember who. Like things like this, but they were still Christian, fighting in all of these. And by fighting, they didn't have to pay the jizya in this time. Now, the jizya. This is something we usually talk about in Islamic history, but actually it was already happening before by the Chalcedonians on whoever wasn't accepting Chalcedon. So jizya, persecution, extermination even. There was a point, so Jacob Berardius, he was the bishop of Edessa, but we only had 3 bishops at one point because they were almost exterminated everybody. Yeah. The Christians in Arabia in the 7th century, like Najran and these areas, were Syriac Orthodox. So outside of the imperial borders, it was easier to be Orthodox than within the borders. So this is where we start to have more of a presence in Persia, in Arabia. It's hard to stay within the Roman borders for us at this time. Now, what about Egypt, the Copts? How did the formula of Hormisdas, this formula, how did it affect Egypt? Did it affect Egypt? Do I give you guys the answer here?
Well, if Saint Severus was in Egypt,
Yeah.
probably told them something.
Right. They couldn't apply it there. It's 100% of the country. They can't do anything in Egypt. So Egypt was protected from this because it was impossible to apply it. And they didn't want to lose Egypt because Egypt was the breadbasket of the whole empire. So, it's Egypt having this exception until 536. Until 536, in 536, they create a new line in Egypt too. But from that time until today, they have like 4 people. So, whatever. There's nothing really to talk about with the line that they have there. Now, after his exile in 518, Severus remains there, and while there, he's arguing not just with Chalcedonians, he's arguing with real Monophysites like Sergius, Julian, heretical Monophysites, as well as the Chalcedonians. He's arguing against both sides while he's in exile. And Justinian is writing to Severus because by the 530s, Justinian wants unity. So he's trying to find reconciliation. So he writes to Severus and he calls him patriarch. Why is that important? We know he's the patriarch. Why is it important that Justinian calls him patriarch?
He legitimizes the other line.
His own line. The line that they installed, he's calling this one patriarch, ours. So then, so much for you guys being real. And Justinian's canonized by them. Okay? So Justinian convinces him to come to Constantinople in the 530s. It was like 532, 536. I think Severus gets there in 536. The conversations start in 532. Or there's 2 rounds of it or something like that. So 532 is the first attempt. 532, the Syriac Orthodox bishops are present in Constantinople and the Chalcedonian side is present. The Copts are not there. It's just the Syriac Orthodox and the Chalcedonians. They're arguing with each other. The minutes for these conversations are available to us, for the most part. So the Chalcedonian side conceded multiple things. it conceded that Dioscorus was orthodox. He was not heretical. It conceded that the letter of Ibas to Mari was heretical. And that's the same letter that was read at Chalcedon and accepted. So it got to the point where all of the things conceded were everything that our side wanted, and that unity was very close. The only thing the other side insisted on in 532 was the formula of Rome. That's that formula that I mentioned earlier. Our side said no.
The tome?
No, not the tome. It's, you could say maybe implicitly, but not explicitly that. The formula being everyone has to remove those people from the list of saints that died outside of communion with Rome. Our side said no to that. We have a saint, his name is John of Tella. He was also put into prison and killed by them. John of Tella said, this formula anathematizes everything under heaven. We can't accept it. Okay. So everyone left because that was the end of discussions there. 536, Severus himself comes. Severus has, since 532, Severus has been writing letters back and forth with Anthimus of Trebizond. Anthimus of Trebizond becomes Patriarch of Constantinople in 536. But until that point, he's there at 532 in the conversations already, and he's been having letters back and forth with Severus. He was on the Chalcedonian side. He was the bishop of Trebizond. I don't know if it's on the map. Let me see. It's not on the map, but Trebizond would be up here on the coast of Anatolia, so the northeast coast of Anatolia on the Black Sea, and then Constantinople would be there. Okay, the area of the Ghasasina I was talking about would be here, south of Damascus, like over here. Okay, anyway, so Anthimus of Trebizond is having this back and forth from 532 with the Syriac Orthodox side. He's against them at this point. He's having the conversation. He's having letters back and forth with Severus. In 536, he converts. He switches sides, Anthimus. So Justinian is a very interesting person because we tend to remember him negatively a lot on our side of things. But it's really because of policy. All of these emperors, like a lot of the decisions they make, whether for us or against us, it's really they're thinking of what's the best thing for my empire going forward. They don't really they don't have a religious conviction for a side. So Justinian, like one way or the other, he's kind of happy. He's like, fine. The Patriarch of Constantinople is agreeing with Severus. We're going to unite finally. Okay. So he brings Severus in 536. They're supposed to have a council there, presided over by Anthimus. Okay? And Anthimus enters into communion with Severus. And that should be the end of it. No more. Who's in town for the first time in church history? First time he attends an ecumenical council. The Pope of Rome. First time ever. Never happened before. 536 AD. Pope Agapetus of Rome is there. Nobody knew he was there. Nobody knew he was coming. He's there. He presides over the council. He excommunicates Severus. He condemns him as a heretic, and his writings are to be burned. Anthimus is deposed as Patriarch of Constantinople. Menas is installed. And they make a new rule because of what happened with Anthimus. Rome makes a new rule for Constantinople. There could be no Patriarch of Constantinople if Rome doesn't approve him. Okay? And Justinian is kind of sad now. He has to enforce this. Now this becomes policy. So he burns all of Severus's writings. This is why we barely have anything left today from Severus in Greek. Everything we have is in Syriac because they're translations of Severus. We have a little bit, fragments of the Greek from Severus because they burned everything. And they condemn him for being both a Monophysite and a Nestorian at the same time, they say about Severus. Why do they say two things? Why did they condemn him for Nestorianism and Monophysitism?
Because he used to write against both.
Yeah, but if these are opposite heresies, how is he condemned for both of them? Does anybody know? Because he's talking about a union of two gnome, two hypostases. So this union, you hear it from the Church of the East. We've always been saying it. Cyril was always saying it. I don't know. But this is one of the reasons. This is the Nestorian part of the reason that he's condemned for this. Okay. So then he left. He escaped Constantinople. They wanted to kill him. He escaped Constantinople. He went to Egypt, where he lived the last 2 years of his life, and then he died. He reposed in the Lord. This is about the Ghasasin, and we talked about them already. Okay. This council in 536 in Constantinople, it was considered by the Chalcedonian side to be the fifth ecumenical council at the time. At the time it happened, it was considered to be the fifth ecumenical council. Justinian still wanted reconciliation, even when this happened. So he wanted to replace it with another fifth council. So, you guys remember the Henoticon from last time? From the agreement from 484 to 518 that everyone was united on. It condemned something called the three chapters. The three chapters, which are Theodore of Mopsuestia, Theodoret of Cyrus, and Ibas of Edessa. Okay? So he's still thinking this is the blueprint that we can get all the sides to agree. We need to condemn these things. And then maybe on the Orthodox side, like our side, they can accept the Tome of Leo. And there could be some kind of trade. That's what he's thinking. So he has this council, and he has this council condemn Theodore of Mopsuestia and condemn the writings only, not the person, the writings of Ibas of Edessa and Theodore of Cyrus. Why only the writings? That's weird. It's never happened before. Why only the writings? Because they don't want to contradict Chalcedon and condemn the person. So Pope Vigilius of Rome said, no, this contradicts Chalcedon. Nothing's wrong with those guys with, for example, the letter of Ibas. Nothing's wrong with it. It's orthodox. They have saints even on their side that said this. So Justinian arrested the Pope of Rome in handcuffs, and they put him in jail, and they excommunicated him and removed him from the diptychs. And they forced him to sign. And then he signed. He said, yeah, this is what I was saying the whole time. Okay? So this Pope is not canonized by even them. He's not canonized by anybody. Yeah.
So they condemned the letter of Ibas, but not Ibas, but then in the Council of Chalcedon, they condemned the letter also. So they are going against the Council of Chalcedon.
The Chalcedon did what?
No, actually, I should say it said that it's not heretical,
it's orthodox.
It's orthodox.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Now they're saying it's heretical, but the person is not.
Right.
So either way, they're so
It's still a contradiction. Yeah. It's you know what else is crazy? Because of up until in 532, there was already evidence by 532 that the minutes of Chalcedon were being tampered with. They're changing what happened. They're going into the historical record and erasing things. Okay? Sebastian Brock writes about this. Richard Price writes about this. Not erasing things hayallah. Things that are pertaining to the acceptance of the letter of Ibas. They're erasing. And even then, it's still not enough because it's still there. What happened? Okay? So imagine what they erased, what would have happened. Okay. So in 553, they do this thinking it's some kind of way to save face for them. It's not, like they're not being honest. Whether even, forget about religion for a second. Even in scholarship, like if you're reading these things, you can't, like scholars are in agreement. The letter of Ibas was used as justification of Ibas's orthodoxy. That is agreement among scholars. But for you to say it's anathema 100 years later, like you said, it's a contradiction. There's no way around it. We can't be honest and kind of find some kind of way to make it work or make it flow. It's not possible. And when we're having dialogue with their side, it would be a lot more beneficial if they were honest about it with us and respected the history. One of the modern agreements with them, it's called Chambassy or something. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's a French word from the city that it was happening in. They condemned Theodoret, his person. They condemned him in the Chambassy dialogue. Like what, 1990 or something. First time in history. Theodoret, they call him blessed in Nicaea 787, their seventh council. They call him blessed. So in 1990, finally they condemn him at Chambassy. Okay. So 553, the Pope is forced to agree with this. This causes a schism in the West. The West now breaks from Rome. Churches in the West break from Rome because they feel like Rome has compromised the religion at Chalcedon. They didn't preserve Chalcedon because the Pope signed this. So some churches in the West break. And then even after this is healed in the West, canonized saints for the Chalcedonians, Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic, canonized saints for them said, no, those things were Orthodox. The letter of Ibas is Orthodox. Theodoret is Orthodox. Theodore is Orthodox. They were still saying it, even after. Okay? The Oriental Orthodox were not at 553. It was too little, too late. All of our big guys were already dead. And plus it wouldn't have been agreeable to us anyway. The Tome of Leo is explicitly mentioned there. Chalcedon is explicitly mentioned there. There's no condemnation there of Severus or Dioscoros. They purposely don't, because they want it to be reconcilable to us, but it wasn't enough. They tried to use the one nature formula, one incarnate nature, in Canon 8, but the way that it is explained is not something that we can accept, because they're not saying that there is one hypostasis from two. And this is what we believe. Okay? I'm trying to think if there's anything else about... Oh, did I talk about the Trisagion last time? I did, right? So the Trisagion comes up in this time period. It comes up earlier, actually. So like 518, 512, this time period, monks are talking to Rome. Eastern Chalcedonian monks are talking to Rome, telling them, why can't we accept this? Who was crucified for us in the Trisagion. Rome was totally against it. Okay? Again, it wasn't controversial to add the clause. So it's because no one thought it was about the Trinity. I explained that last time. So then, moving forward in history, the Chalcedonian side, when they create the fake line, the new line, when they created them, that side is also saying it. They're both saying who was crucified for us in the Trisagion. Until a patriarch on their side, I'm trying to remember which one it was. It might have been Ephraim of Amid. I can't remember which patriarch it was on their side that removed it. One of their patriarchs removed it from the thing because Rome wanted that. That was controversial, to remove it out. Again, not because it was interpreted to be about the Trinity. John of Damascus, I think 2 centuries later, argues that it's about the Trinity. At this time, nobody was thinking that. So he removes it because it's saying that he wants to say only the human nature died, not God incarnate. So that's why he removes it. So when he removes it, I told you guys about the parrot. No? Okay. Isaac of Antioch writes about this. He's earlier. Isaac of Antioch is like late 5th century, okay? But this is continuing throughout after him. Isaac of Antioch, Isaac of Antioch. He trained a parrot. By the way, Ephraim talks about training parrots too. This is an old Syriac tradition about training parrots. He's just a random thing. St. Ephraim says, you put a mirror in front of, between you and the parrot. So the parrot sees itself in the mirror, and then you talk behind the mirror to the parrot. So the parrot thinks that it's talking. So then it mimics itself. That's what St. Ephraim says. And so Isaac of Antioch trains this parrot, I don't know, maybe multiple parrots, to go into Antioch and say the Trisagion to the random people as a hymn. The parrots are going and saying, Holy God, holy, the parrots are saying it. The parrots in Antioch are going around saying this to the people. So this continues. So there's a big fight about it, and so to the point where in the persecution, so we're persecuted, we can't go around saying it. But who's still saying it? The parrots. The parrots are going around in the city saying this for us because we can't, because they're going to kill us if we say it. Okay? So this continues. And then eventually the Eastern Chalcedonians create this new Christology because they want to kind of find a meeting place where they're not as dualistic as, say, the West is, because there was a saying, even from Chalcedon, they were saying this, if you want to be Nestorian, go to Rome. That was the phrase. People would say it. If you want to be Nestorian, go to Rome. Philoxenos, St. Philoxenos, he would say, the Eastern Chalcedonians are worse than the Nestorians. Who does he mean, the Nestorians? He means the Westerners. He doesn't mean the Assyrian Church of the East. He means the Westerners. Rome, the Latins. Why are they worse, St. Philoxenos? Because at least Rome is honest about their Nestorianism. Not like these guys. What were they doing, the Eastern Chalcedonians? They said, okay, so remember, the original argument is what? It's these two particulars, these two gnome coming together. Do they remain two or do they become one? That's the original argument. That's the argument of the Church of the East. That's the argument of originally Rome. Sometimes once in a while, you'll meet a Roman Catholic who still says this. I've met them. They're not that many, but they exist. And we're saying it becomes one. Okay? This is the original argument. What the Eastern Chalcedonians in the 6th century, they create a new one. So this is not what Chalcedon taught, or the Tome of Leo. There is a simple divine only hypostasis. Only divine. This simple divine hypostasis unites to itself a generic human nature, whatever that means, a generic humanity with no particularities. So no height, weight, eye color, skin color, hair color, nothing. All of the particularities are inhypostatized. They're attached by the divinity into the humanity. They are not proper to the humanity itself. Why هاي الخربطة? Why are they doing this? هاي المixing. For what?
What time is this happening?
6th century. This is leading up to this council. Leading up to this council, they start to have this, it's called Neo-Chalcedonianism. They start to have this. Why? Why did they do that? So, it sounds like it, right? That's the irony. Apollinarianism, Eutychianism, real monophysitism is what it is. But why are they doing that? Because they want to somehow find a way to be saying one thing. They don't want to say two. And they don't want to say we're right. So they create this new way of saying one. Which is look, once you say that a part of this generic humanity, this generic humanity has particularities in it, like the hair, the skin, the whatever. Now it's not generic, now it's particular. When you say it's particular, so then what do you have? Two particulars. So in order to not say two particulars, they want to say one particular. So then they're attaching the particularities from the divinity into the generic humanity. Yeah? This is, and by the way, I didn't paint them wrong. This is actually how they explain for the Eastern Orthodox today, this is how they explain their Christology.
And now Rome is still like more Nestorian-like, or how are they like?
What do you mean Nestorian?
More like Tuchnome, kind of braiding.
The honest one, the good ones, the ones that we can actually have a conversation with.
The most common, like you see mostly the Roman Catholic. What's their
The ones that I know, yes. The ones that I know and I have these conversations with.
extreme, like what is
I don't know. I wish Fadi Bunni was here today so we could ask him. But I like the ones that I have conversations with, the Roman Catholics that I have conversations with, agree that there are two particulars after the union. Yeah.
But at this time, this was more like Eastern Chalcedonian. When this was like being
Until today. Until today, it's them.
exclusively. I mean, at the time.
Usually, yeah, usually. You'll find exceptions on both sides, but usually, yes. I don't like the term Nestorian because it's anachronistic. I don't think anybody would say that they're Nestorian. So like the Church of the East would say this is what they've believed before. And Nestorius, to be fair, doesn't have an impact on them. Even the Roman Catholics too. Okay, the Roman Catholics, they get this from Leo and from Chalcedon.
It's heretic to them, like they would say. So
Yeah,
they wouldn't call themselves.
right. And I honestly think Nestorius just believed in two particulars after the union. I don't think he believed in anything crazy, like they wouldn't be different. But when we're giving them the name, this name, it's like a trigger word. You know what I mean? So this new Christology now and this is what they wanted to reconcile us on. They thought this was a way of reconciliation because they're saying one now. So this made it worse. Like Philoxeno said, this is worse than what Rome is doing because they're destroying the union. There's no two particulars coming together anymore. At least before we could have argued about 1 versus 2. And the idea of a union of two particulars is there. And then we can argue of what the union consummates as. But now you're saying that there's no union. When we say hypostatic union, ittihad iqnumi, hypostatic union, if there's not a union of hypostasis, how is it a hypostatic union? So then they say, yeah, we believe a hypostatic union, but not a union of hypostases. What? What are you talking about? Yeah. Okay. So, the other day, somebody on that side, he was challenging like a Coptic guy for a debate or something. He told him, "How show how we are Nestorian. We believe in one simple divine hypostasis only." Yeah, so you're Monophysite then. Okay, you're not Nestorian. In Safugrak. Okay. Okay, so remember when I was saying Justinian is enforcing this policy of persecution, but at the same time, he's funding us, he's sponsoring us across borders. Across borders, he's actually giving us money, but within the borders, he's trying to exterminate us all. This is how you know, like, it's about policy, it's not about religious conviction. But he forged, another bad thing he did, he forged a lot of stuff. Al Asas, our saints said it, our saints never said it. He just put it on our saint's name because we refused his council of 553. Anyway, so he sponsors us and he has military alliances with countries like Ethiopia, who was Oriental Orthodox, and they fight wars together, and he's helping us in places like Persia, Arabia, these areas that are outside of the borders. So Marutha of Tikrit, from 484, like I told you guys, when they killed Marbawe, the Persians, the Church of the East Synod communion with them is broken with Antioch. So we kind of lose each other. Like I think I was at St. Severus or St. John of Tella, one of them, he said, Persia has been lost. Okay? So in this time, now we're having, like St. John of Tella, they found him in Persia. Ephraim of Amid is the one who caught him. He had people catch him in Persia to bring him back to Rome to kill him. Okay? It was Ephraim of Amid who did that. So John of Tella is doing these missions in Persia. And many other saints we have are doing missions in Persia. When I say Persia, I don't mean Iran. I mean the Persian Empire. Okay, so part of that, the part that's significant for this conversation is Iraq. Iraq is where I'm talking about when I'm saying Persia. Okay? So John of Tella is going to Iraq. A lot of our other saints are going to Iraq, and they're trying to win over some of the Church of the East back. Eventually, we have such a strong presence there that we're able to create a center in Iraq paralleling the already existing Church of the East. The Church of the East is based in Madain at this time. And we set up in Tikrit. Okay? So Marutha becomes Bishop Catholicos of Tikrit in communion with Antioch, and then from there we already have monasteries and things, churches older, so like Marmetti and other places. So synods are now being held to try to structure the administration of the Syriac Orthodox Church across the borders regarding the Catholicos and his role under the Patriarch and how the relation should be, and his role in relation to the Bishop of Marmetti. He was in an honored place too. So how all of these three fit with each other at this time, things were happening like that.
So it's at this time that the autocephaly part is like no more for this line here.
The Church of the East autocephaly?
Yeah.
The Church of the East autocephaly happens in 410 AD.
Right, but well, because now we're having our line.
Oh, our line is not big enough to have autocephaly. Yeah.
But since
And plus, we're like getting persecuted like crazy back home. So really it's de facto autocephaly. That's why it's a Catholicos, not just a bishop. You know what I mean? So, and it's kind of like autonomy, not autocephaly. It's like a level down. Yeah. And we're having people everywhere. Like imagine, like even in Yemen, in Najran. Today Najran falls under Saudi, but at the time it was considered Yemen. Najran, we had churches. So how are we administering them? You know what I mean? So everything had a little bit of autonomy, decentralization. It wasn't like now, where it's a smaller world today. Okay, he's based in Tikrit. Ba'utha is reinstated. The fast of Ba'utha is reinstated, the fast of Nineveh. At this time, originally there was a constant clash between us and the Church of the East, and this continues for about 500 years or so. A constant rivalry, even when the caliphate comes. They, I'm saying from what I've read, okay, they throw us under the bus a lot to the caliphate. After that, when the Arabs really are not in power anymore, and it's more like the Turks, the Mongols, these kinds of things, that's when relations with the Church of the East become good. Not that we're communing each other and stuff, no, but they become good, meaning like we're realizing we're on the same team. We start to support each other and certain stuff, like Bar Abroyo. He was our Catholicos at a certain time, and when he passed away, they did his funeral right. The Church of the East did it. So it's good to see that relations have got better very quickly. If you think about church history in general, and all the different breaks and schisms and how relations work, the Church of the East, it was about, I don't know, 500 years or so before relations start to improve. Everybody else, it took a lot longer than that. It has a lot to do with being in the same place, speaking the same language, being the same people. The Copts didn't have good relations with the Church of the East until just now. Just recently they've started to have it. So that shows you something. The Armenians also relatively recently, maybe 19th century, they start having good relations with the Church of the East. One day, in the Arab conquest, the Arabs had pillaged a Greek Orthodox church, I think it was, or monastery, something like that, and they stole their Eucharist. The Arabs stole it. We intercepted the Greek Orthodox Eucharist from the Arabs, and we went and returned it back to the Greek Orthodox. Tells you something, yeah? Any questions? How much time do I have?
I'm not sure. We started at 7:30, I think, maybe right before.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question again from last time, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So Saint Dioscoros, so he didn't excommunicate Rome, like Poplio at the time when he excommunicated the East. And he did it like before Ephesus 2, right before you, I think you said. And like,
Yeah,
what was the reason? Like, why did it happen right before? And like,
Because he didn't read the tome.
before that point, he hadn't read it.
449, Dioscoros asked for the tome to be read. The government officials stopped him from reading it, from having it read. Somehow, I don't know how it's reported back to Leo later by the Roman legates or whatever, he thought Dioscoros didn't want it to be read or what. He has a synod in Rome in 449 and he excommunicates Dioscoros for that.
Right, but then I'm saying what the point when Dioscoros excommunicated
Leo back. Yeah.
yeah, right before Chalcedon.
Yes.
Why was it right before, not during
Bec-
the 2 years?
I could be for multiple reasons. It could be maybe he wasn't aware at like the extent at which Leo is against him, because he was still saying Leo's name in the liturgy. He was still saying the diptychs. You know how we say
But
the name.
his belief is the same during those 2 years. So
What belief of what?
of the two nature type?
Yeah, but
type
if the
language.
tome is coming in Greek, how can we know this is what Leo means unless you talk to him? So this is why the letter of 497 was so important, because Alexandria is telling Rome in 497, way later. Theodoret, the heretic, translated this. Let's talk to see what you mean by it. So they don't like whether this tome is correctly translated or not. It's not enough to make a definitive statement at Ephesus 2 regarding it, separated from any context. We need him here, just like the other ones were there, to talk, to explain, to whatever. And plus, he's Latin,
But the exclamation happened before the council,
right?
from Dioscoros to Leo.
Yes, yes. But because that was a reversal, because Leo had excommunicated him.
But he waited 2 years.
I know. He waited 2 years. Maybe I'm telling you, I don't know the reason, but I'm thinking it's because he didn't know the extent at which that Leo wanted him out. Like couldn't stand him.
So it's not because of like now he knows how bad like heretical views Leo had. It's because of how bad he hated him, or he had it out for him.
Yeah, he probably found out about the deals Leo made with like Anatolius, Juvenal, all the stuff leading up to Chalcedon. But there was nothing theological that was added in these 2 years.
Yeah.
No.
And how can you excommunicate without a council? Or he had a council?
No. You can excommunicate a bishop. You just don't commune with that bishop. Like you're not universally excommunicating him. You're excommunicating him just from you. And then there needs to be reconciliation.
So was this like for the whole for the Synod of Egypt, like, or just, you know?
I think what he did
or
is that he celebrated a liturgy, and he didn't mention his name. I think that's what happened.
But then again, a council is happening, and you want there to be good relations, like, let's say, somewhat. Why now? Like the
Because
timing
he
is
didn't
weird.
believe.
The
He
timing
didn't.
is like,
So Dioscoros knew that it was a puppet council. He didn't believe that this was going to be a fair council. He knew. Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
When did we have the last Catholicos in Iraq?
19th century. I think 1817, 1870, something like that. Yeah.
This is before we had, before India.
India was already in communion.
But so he resided over, the Catholicos in Iraq resided over all the east?
Yes, everything. It was everything in Iraq and East. Because why did it end? So, the borders of the Roman-Persian Empire, it kind of stayed like this even in the Caliphate days, where you'd have like rival empires, like the Ottoman Empire, the Persian Empire, where the border would be around this area anyway. So it kind of stayed. But the Ottomans in the 70s, they made 1870s, they made an agreement with the Persians to solidify the border with them. So Iraq became a permanent part of the Ottoman Empire. So then there was no need anymore for the Catholicos in Iraq. The patriarchate at that time was in Deir Za'faran, I think, and it was in like a central place in Mesopotamia that could administer Iraq and Bilad al-Sham.
And when did we start the Catholicos in India?
I think 1912 or something like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but the problem with the Indians is they think the canons that concern the Catholicate from the early times, like Mar Marutha's time, apply to them. Who told you this is the same situation?
It's the same office, or
No, it's not. There's no continuity to them. No, it's a new thing. Yeah.
so our thing is over, and then like their thing kind of started. So that's okay.
The Church of the East, the Assyrian Church of the East, is the original Catholicate. That's the original one. And they have, even in communion with us, autocephaly. So the reason why we even have the Indians is because there were Orthodox people in the East who wanted to stay in communion. That's it. But if the Assyrian Church of the East stayed in communion, they would be under the Assyrian Church of the East. Yeah, 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 that's true. Yeah, exactly. We would be Medin Haye. Yeah. Ala Hamshiha. Okay. Any other questions or ducks? That's it.